Welcome to Beyond Rent, the property management podcast brought to you by Rent Manager. Each episode, we sit down with an expert to talk industry updates, tech solutions, and top tips for those in the property management space. And now, let's get to the conversation and go Beyond Rent.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Rent. Every person that I've ever spoken to has cited communication as one of the biggest challenges they face in managing a business or even in their personal lives, right? Communication is always such a challenge. Both internally, externally, it's always something we're trying to overcome and do better. So to understand more about how technology can step in and help us with communication, we have Joe from Efformance joining us today. Joe, welcome to Beyond Rent.
Thank you very much, Joe. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us in studio for this episode. Communication is so important, right? We communicate all day, every day, all types of different formats. It's really important we get it right. So I'm excited to learn more from you today about what we can do with technology to make that better. But before we do, let's get to know you better. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks, Joe. Again, my name is Joe Schultz. I'm with Efformance, and we are an integration partner with Rent Manager. But my start with Rent Manager actually got started back in 2015 as a customer, just like any other customer. So I managed my own properties, managed properties for others, and we needed a property management software, and I did the evaluation, went through a whole bunch of them, and landed on Rent Manager, and we're happy we did.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I love your story because people get started in this industry in all types of different ways. They progress through it in different ways, and you went from an operator, a property management company. You started tinkering out with technology, which I think is kind of just in your DNA. I think you've always done that. And you started developing tools. And finally you said, I probably should be offering these tools to other people. And that's really kind of the story. And I think we'll get to a lot of that as we kind of have this conversation about communication. But let's jump right in because I think there's a lot to cover today as it relates to communication. So I want to focus first on the resident side. Why is it so difficult to communicate with residents?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, and really both ends of the spectrum. Number one, there are a lot of companies who have a lot of residents now. So they're trying to figure out ways to be more efficient. So it's not like the old days where maybe you owned an 8 family and you could just go and visit your 8 residents every week if you wanted to. You've got more residents now. So you got to figure out a way to be more efficient with that. How can I get this communication out to them, to more residents in a more efficient way? Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got, obviously, technology has been introduced, and so residents are being pounded with communication. So there's mail, there's visits, there's phone calls, then there's texts, there's emails, there's social media, there's all kinds of different ways that they can be communicated with. So there's got to be a balance there somewhere. How can I effectively communicate? How can I do this in the most efficient way from our operational point of view, but also make sure that our residents are seeing this communication and it's actually being effective. And so, you're going to get into things like, how do I use technology? That's one, and I know we'll talk about a lot of that today. But another piece of that is, what does the communication need to look like? It's got to be effective so that they read it. And sometimes it's a matter of making sure that they even get it, for example, right? They have to get that communication. And with so many different, let's call them inboxes, so many different ways that people can receive information, there's a kind of a fight there. There's a challenge for that shelf space on that resident to make sure that you're going to get their attention.
Yeah, and that's so true. And when we think about old school communication, right? I think it was in person, maybe a phone call, maybe a letter in the mail, and that list hasn't gotten any shorter, right? That list just keeps getting longer and longer, and the old ones don't go away. They still are there, and some people actually still prefer those methods of communication. So that becomes really, really challenging there. And I love the fact that you talked about scale and the number of people that you're communicating with and how that needs to maybe inform the way that you are communicating. If you're communicating with just a few people, that may look dramatically different than communicating with hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people at one time.
Right. Because there are different ways to do it. There's going to be a lot of different ways that you can communicate, but how can you get that message across? So if you are communicating with hundreds or thousands of people, how can I want to be able to tailor that message to make sure it's appropriate for that individual resident. And at the same time, I don't want it to be like it's a form letter that's going out to them. So how can you make that personable make it pertinent to that resident, but at the same time be effective so that you can get all this out. If I've got 500 residents or 1,000 or 20,000, whatever the number is, how can I do that? How can I do that in an effective way? And that's really where technology comes in.
Yeah, and I think we've all received those form letters where it says dear, and instead of your name being there, they missed a step and it says first name, last name, or it's flipped something, or it's got some variation of your name that you just know is not right. And so all of a sudden you discount anything that follows after that communication.
Right, exactly. So technology is huge. And I love technology. One of my mantras has always been, since we started Efformance, has been, well, if a computer can do it, then let a computer do it because it can do it a lot faster. But there are certain things, and we're getting better with computers. Computers are getting better at personalizing things. AI can help in that realm. But nonetheless, how can I get that out? I've got a lot of people to send things to, but still make it personable enough so that resident doesn't feel like they're just a number as well.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, so that's the resident side. And before we talk about the actual solutions through technology, what about internal communication? And I think that might be an area that a lot of people don't realize is as hard as it is until you start doing it. Maybe for some of the same reasons, right? The number of people, the types of messages you're sending. But what are some of the areas of improvement, I guess, you see as it relates to how people communicate with their coworkers and their staff?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, from a technology standpoint, what you want to do is identify those things that are tedious, that are manual, that are repetitive, those types of things. Those are the types of things that when I say, if a computer can do it, let a computer do it, those are the types of things that maybe you can start to automate. Now, that's one side of it. But then on the flip side, then you have to generate the content for that. And frankly, that is an area where AI has been able to help. It's really been able to help craft a message. Now, I don't know if I'd be a big fan of just saying, AI, go and send this message out before I get to review it. I think you need to review it first. But it absolutely can help you formulate the content of that message so that it is appropriate. That is one thing that AI is very good at. So use technology to your advantage. Some people are still a little afraid to do that. They're a little afraid that, well, that's not what my residents want. But first of all, remember that they're starting to expect that as well, right? As, you know, let's go all the way down to student housing, right? They're going to be some of the youngest residents. They're expecting that. They're expecting to get text messages. They're not expecting to get something in the mail. They're not expecting somebody to show up at their door and talk to them. They're expecting to get text messages. So as they grow up, right, and as time goes on, more and more people are going to be expecting this type of communication. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. You have to embrace what's out there right now. And there's a lot. There's a lot of tools built right into the software, right? There's a lot of other tools that you can add on to help you with that communication. But you embrace what's out there, look what's out there, find out what's out there, and start to use it. One of the biggest challenges in property management is just getting the time to do anything. Because we all know in property management, you get pulled in a million different directions. And one of the last things you want to do is say, well, now I got to learn how to do this. I got to learn to do this new. I got to learn how to communicate with my residents in a new way. And I understand that. But you know, it's that upfront time that you take now that will save you hours of time down the road. So yes, you kind of have to bite the bullet initially, but it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. Just utilize what you got. And if you're not comfortable with the technology, you know, find somebody who can help you because there's a lot of resources there too.
Yeah, and I really like this idea of embracing things and what the resident, your staff, anyone's really expecting when it comes to communication these days. And I really believe that if you are sending people the right content in a timely manner, that is more important than maybe whether or not it's personalized to a certain degree. Yes, we'd all love to receive maybe a phone call or a text message, whatever our preference is, from somebody that we know is a direct message and it has all the right information in it. But I think the flip side of that is if we try to focus too much on making sure everything is personalized and we are calling these people, we're going to miss 90% of the communication we should be having with the residents because they're not going to get anything at that point. We don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, it's making me actually, what came to my mind was actually using Rent Manager scripting, for example, because that scripting is so powerful when you're creating letters, right? And you can do things, when you talk about getting the content right, you can make it very less formish. When I say formish, as a form letter, you can make it very much less form-ish because of all the scripting capabilities. So you can use information that Rent Manager already has about that resident. You can use that and insert that very easily into your letter, even though you're generating 1,000 letters. It can be very personalized that way.
And maybe that's a really good kind of segue into the technology piece, right? As we think about technology, and I think we'll dive much deeper into much more complex versions of technology and applications of it. But even to that point, right, that if you are sending out letters or text messages, that software, including our software, has the ability to personalize it and make it feel like you really were sending that message just to one person.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's where, again, when I talk about taking the time to learn something, and it might not be you, it might be somebody else in your organization. You might have to go outside your organization to find somebody who can help you with it. But what you can do is you can understand what's available to you. What is available in your software, if it is Rent Manager, if it is something else, what is available in your software? And even outside of that, what is available maybe outside of the software that can still help you with your job? And so that's the first step, is what's possible, right? And one of the things that can be difficult is finding too many things that are possible, getting overwhelmed, saying, I want to do all of these things. So start simple, right? Start with one thing and do that and see how that goes. And then maybe you can add on another thing. But that's I think, a good rule of thumb in all cases. We can very easily get overwhelmed. I want to do this, I want to do that, I could do this, I could do that. And that's great. But that's also a really good way to get overwhelmed. So just start simple, start small, and then you can build up to it.
And I do think a lot of people get overwhelmed quickly when it comes to technology, especially with communication, because I think there is just this risk that exists when you start using technology for communication, because if it gets it wrong, if the content was wrong, or if it was sent to the wrong person, or let's just go ahead and jump on AI. If you're using AI and you kind of let it have a little too much control and something does go wrong, there's just this risk, right? Where if it's internal technology improvements, there's a little more, willingness to take a risk at that point and maybe have a little bit of a mistake. But when you're dealing with residents, you don't want to have any mistakes. So I think that's really good advice. When you were operating your business and you were thinking about how to communicate with residents, where were some of those places that you started to implement technology first to get the biggest wins and kind of create that momentum for yourself?
Yeah, well, initially it was both texting and email. So we utilized a lot of the tools within the software that could automate that, because that was pretty simple to do and, kind of a no-brainer to do. We could communicate with a lot of people at one time. But then that moved on over to physical U.S. mail, where that is an extremely tedious process. So to give you an example, when we would do our delinquency notices once a month, it would literally take us an entire day to do it, because we had to send all those delinquency notices out certified mail. And then we had to make sure that we understood, where these certified mailings were going, so that we understood how to charge the appropriate property for the mailings. And so between the time it took just to do the mailings physically and the time it took to do the bookkeeping, it was a full day. And so then we created a solution that literally took that full day down to a couple minutes. And so that's a game changer, right? When you can do something like that. But starting with texting and emailing, and those solutions were built right in, going all the way to finding, literally creating another solution for the certified mailing. That's what we did. And we said, look, essentially it came down to, if there's something that we're doing over and over again, and it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's manual, it's tedious, so nobody wants to do it, it's repetitive, right? Those are, if you find something that is those three things, that is a prime candidate to automate and to use technology for. So that's what we did. And we ended up creating a solution to help us do that certified mail.
And I hope everyone really heard you say that those three elements, if you have anything in your business you're doing right now that meets those three requirements, you have to find a technology solution to replace it, right? And a lot of talk right now is like, oh, well, AI take jobs and stuff like that. And I don't think that's what we're here to talk about. But it's the same concern people have always had, right? People have always said, well, is technology going to replace this person or that person? And to some degree, the answer is yes, it will. So we need to embrace that technology and use it to our advantage to grow our businesses better, faster, and stronger, so we can maximize our opportunity. I also really like that you talked about starting in the software you're already using and maximize those tools and resources right out of the gate.
Yes.
Right? Those are kind of low-hanging fruit. Tackle those, get the gains that you can right there, because it's sitting right in front of you and you're probably working around those built-in solutions right now.
Softwares are so capable now. I mean, if I go way back to when I'd get a new piece of software, and now I'm talking 30 plus years ago, I would literally want to read the entire manual. So I knew everything that software could do. Now that's ridiculous. It's impossible, right? You can't do that because softwares do so much. And so the point that I'm trying to make is that, and you brought it up, there is a really good chance that something you want to do can be done already, and you may just not know about it. I don't know what the statistics are exactly, but I do know just by talking with customers that many people are not using, I shouldn't say many, probably all customers are not, there's no way you could. You can't know everything there is to know about a software. So customers are probably not using any software that they are using to its full capabilities. And so to your point, look at what, make sure you do your due diligence, do your research, see what your software is capable of. It's probably capable of more than you think, and start there. And then if something isn't available there, then start looking for something on the outside.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We have customers and we call them power users, right? And these power users know about the software in ways that most don't. They're using it in ways that most don't. They're providing feedback to us in ways that most people don't. They're really entrenched in the software. But even those people are still at best 90%. And I'm going to say at best 90%. They're probably closer to 75% of actually utilizing software. Now, some of that's by choice, right? They've decided that this part of the software isn't what they need or want. They don't want to operate that way, and that's fine. But there's other pieces that they just haven't gotten around to implementing yet, or they may not even have really discovered at this point either. And I hate to put a percent on it, but I'm going to tell you it's south of 50% all day long.
I believe that, yes.
Yeah. So you're paying for something and you can get a lot more out of it. So that's exciting for us too, honestly. When we think about our customers and how they use our software, we know there's so much more we can be doing for them. And that's very encouraging that there's still so much more opportunity out there. So let's talk about the automation piece. So you mentioned automating things and how that looks and how that feels. Once something is automated, how often are you going back and looking at it, or how often do you recommend that people go back and look at it? Because it's easy, the whole we'll set it and forget it. But there's a little bit of, like I said earlier, a little bit of a risk if you never go back and check on it.
Yeah, I don't foresee a time, certainly in the near future, and I'm not quite sure I can see ever a time where things are not going to need to be reviewed. A computer is not going to be able to do everything. A computer isn't reasoning. There's a lot of cool things that AI can do, but it's not doing some of those things. So to set it and forget it completely, it depends what it is. For example, if you're automating the sending of your statements, you're sending out statements and you're emailing out your statements every month to all your residents, that's something that probably doesn't need to be reviewed too often, right? It's pretty cut and dry what it's doing. But nonetheless, you still want to make sure that it's going to the right people. Did anything change? Has anybody else had access to this to change the settings that are in here? And so you do want to review it. To say set it and forget it, it's a great term and we use it quite a bit. But I don't want to say that we could ever completely forget it. Definitely set it, and we're never going to completely forget it, right? Because things do change. Things change in your business, and people change in your business. So the way one person sets something up, maybe that's different now. So it's important to review it. I can't say how often to do that because it depends on the situation, right? If it's a type of letter that's going out and the content is important, that's probably going to need to be reviewed more frequently than if you're just sending out a template statement that goes out every month, right? That doesn't change probably at all, except for the numbers that are in there. So understand what it is that you're sending clearly, and then have a policy to determine we're going to review this once a quarter. We're going to review this twice a year. We're going to review this once a year, whatever it might be, and then use automation to help you remember to review those things.
automate the reminders. I think that's really important. I need a lot of reminders in my life.
Yeah, so do I. That's right.
So let's dive into the products that Efformance provides, because I think that really is important when we talk about how to use technology to improve communication. I don't think there's a lot of people out there doing the type of work that you're doing and providing some really streamlined, smart solutions. So let's jump into the MailFuze products first, because that's the one that you've offered for the longest. You've already mentioned it, this idea of using technology for mailing letters and notices and things like that. Give us kind of the elevator pitch, and then let's talk about how it works.
Yeah, quite simply, MailFuze automates the sending of physical mail. And as I mentioned earlier, it came about because we had the need in my property management company to do a lot of certified mail in one day. And it was just a very tedious process. And so we said there's got to be a better way. So MailFuze simply is connected directly to Rent Manager. So you can pull up a list of your residents, choose who you want to send mail to. You can choose the letter template that you want to mail out. Then you choose how you want to mail it: first class mail, certified mail, confirmation of mail, and basically hit send, and you're done. So you can send out one letter, or you can send out 2,000 letters literally in seconds. And so there is no printing, folding, stuffing, stamping, going to the post office. There's none of that. Everything is handled electronically. And in our back end, it's all automated. Some people think, well, if I send 2,000 letters, you guys print these out at home? What are you doing? No, it's all completely automated. So there are large printers everything is 100% automated. They're folded automatically. They're stuffed automatically, and they're then given to the post office.
And it's such a great solution because of what you just said there, as far as the actual technology behind the physical piece, the automation, the production side of it. Because when I think of mailing out a letter, yes, it's a little primitive in how it's getting delivered, but it's even more primitive in the way that we get it into the envelope, right? Typically, right? We're printing it on a printer, we're having to manually fold it, we're stuffing it, we're putting in a stamp on there, and that is just a lot of labor when you consider what you're trying to achieve. So your solution on the execution side is actually using partners that you have to actually print and stuff these and mail them with no humans being involved, right? And that's one of the biggest advantages to making sure that it's happening quickly, right? That you can do thousands and it's nothing you have to think about. So I think that part is great and really critical. But on the front end, it's really the power of your software that's allowing all of this to happen in such a fast and simple and fluid way. And that's what really, I think, gets people excited about your solution, because I don't think this idea of mailing out letters is going away, at least not in our industry.
Right. In some cases, it's actually growing, because there are some jurisdictions that are requiring more and more things to be sent out via certified mail. So whether it's in some jurisdictions, it's lease renewals. Certainly in many jurisdictions, it's delinquency notices that need to be sent out. Some jurisdictions are saying, well, now you not only have to send it out certified mail, but you also have to send it out first class mail, right? So in some cases, it's more, right? But we are replacing a lot of human work is what's happening, and making companies a lot more efficient. We've had stories from customers who say when they would be doing their delinquency notices or their lease renewals or whatever it might be, they have a big conference room and they get a bunch of people in that conference room, and that's what they're doing all day, is they're folding and stuffing and stamping and doing all of that. And you think about that, and you not only think about the time that it takes, but you think about the room that there is for error too. So if I get the wrong letter in the wrong envelope and I'm sending out a delinquency notice, that's a problem, right? And even beyond that, you also have the issue of just, I'll just say, sheer boredom. I mean, people don't like doing this. So when we have implemented MailFuze at certain customers, they are so happy that they no longer have to do that, because they don't want to be doing that. Anybody can do, right? They want to be doing more high-level, important things to the function of the business. This is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but again, I'm going to go back to this. A computer can do it. So let a computer do it. And let me get back to talking to my residents and solving the issues that they're having. That's really where this is at.
And when we talk about computers, technology replacing humans in the workforce, It's really not. It's actually, I think, always empowering humans to do that higher level work.
Agreed.
In every single situation we've ever experienced, I always think that's actually what ends up happening. You talk about other industries. They're talking about, truck drivers being replaced by computers. It's like, well, maybe that will happen, and I think it probably will. But I think the hope is that then those humans can go do other higher level work. And I think that's what we all actually want at the end of the day. Most people want jobs where they feel like they're providing a value that a computer can't provide, right? That we're providing something at a higher level that's unique and human, and not just something a computer's doing.
Right. I mean, we saw that if I go all the way back to the 1970s, I can remember when we'd see robots building cars. And that the big thing then was everybody's going to lose their job, right? It's really the same thing that we're hearing now. And really, it's exactly to your point that, yes, some jobs are lost, but tons of jobs are created as a result. That's what we've seen over time. And I think we're going to see the same thing here. And it just elevates us as a whole to do exactly what you said, which was let's start using our human resources to do more, I'll call them just more meaningful, less tedious things. And that leads to greater employee satisfaction, right? It leads to just better well-being on their part, and they're happier at the organization because they can go anywhere and, stuff envelopes. But they want to be somewhere they can, be kind of using their noggin and saying, I want to help problem solve. That's what I want to do. That's what most people want to do.
Yeah, I agree. And when you think about this idea of communication, especially resident or even internal, if you can offload all of the tedious communication, the handful of communication pieces or conversations that you have throughout the day can be better because Absolutely. Of that, right? You can actually focus on the ones where, okay, this has to be a phone call, or this has to be an in-person conversation. You can actually focus on those.
Yeah, let's not, and we're doing that right now, but let's make sure that everyone understands we're not saying humans go away, right? We're saying let's do the things that computers can do and let computers do it, but humans are, right? We always have to have interaction. Nobody wants the phone call where they call up and all they get is automated and they keep hitting buttons and they can't get anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. They want to eventually talk to a person, especially if it's a complicated problem. Now, I had a great experience with my telephone company with a customer service where it was all AI, and it was wonderful. I got my question answered within a couple of minutes, whereas in the past I might have been on hold for 10 minutes or half hour, who knows, and then try to find somebody who knows the answer. It was all AI, and my question was answered almost immediately. That was great. But there are going to be more complex problems that come up where I am going to need to talk to somebody. And that's going to happen in property management all the time. Because my question was pretty simple. I had a question why there was a certain charge on my statement. Okay, and the AI could help me with that. But in property management, we know there are an infinite number of things that can come up, and people need to talk to somebody. So let's not, neither of us is saying that human beings can be completely replaced when it comes to communication. That in property management, it's a people business, and you're going to need to still have that human interaction because people want that at some level.
Yeah, they really do. Absolutely. Well, I want to talk about your latest product, Savant, and it's really an interesting product. And earlier you kind of referenced this idea that people have lots of different inboxes, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's text or email. And we even talked about this idea of paper mail, USPS mail, being on the increase in some areas because of different regulations. And I think that is going up because people have so many different inboxes now that some lawmakers are like, well, no, we need to force communication one way, because if you send a text message out that you're getting evicted, that's not really a fair way to communicate such an important matter. So we all have all these different inboxes, and managing them is really important. One of the hardest ones to manage is the actual inbox that we think of when it comes to email. And that's really your latest solution. So tell us more about that one.
Yeah. So Savant is relatively new. We just launched it July 1. It was in beta testing for a couple of months before that. But what Savant will do is automatically capture all email correspondence between a property management company's staff and their tenants, prospects, vendors, and owners. And it'll automatically take the contents of that email and record it as a history note inside of Rent Manager. So it is properly date and time stamped. We know who that email was from, who it was going to, and we have the contents of it. So it solves a couple of problems. Right now, The way email works is everybody's got their own individual email box. Of course, there are shared email boxes and whatnot, but tenants are still going to send correspondence directly to a person. Once they get to know somebody, it's going right to Joe Easton, right? I know Joe. Joe's going to help me out. I'm just going to send it right to him. But that email now, unless you do something, unless you actively do something with that information, it's sitting in your inbox. And so now you get sick and you're gone all week, and I have absolutely no idea what's going on with that tenant, right? But what Savant will do is all that communication that you had been having with the resident going back and forth is automatically being recorded in the history notes. Now all I have to do is go look inside a rent manager in the history notes, and I have everything that I need. I can see exactly what you talked to, what you had been talking to that resident about. So it's a way to consolidate. It's almost like a consolidated inbox in some ways, where rent manager now is that big inbox, like a big corporate inbox, but it's organized properly. So if the correspondence relates to, tenant Joe Smith, then I just go look in Joe Smith's history notes and I can see that there. So it solves a problem. There's of making sure that all that correspondence can be seen and can be visible by the entire company when appropriate. But it's also built in such a way that some of those emails can be limited, because you may not want all the emails recorded, and Savant has ways to handle that as well. So it's new, but it's been very popular so far, and we've been really pleased with the results.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And again, it goes back to the same idea we're talking about, is using technology to improve communication. And in this situation, it's really kind of more about that internal communication, right? And it's the unspoken communication. It's this idea of getting all the data in one place, so it's easy to find no matter what staff member's looking for it. Somebody's on PTO, they're out sick, whatever happens, all that communication stays in one place, regardless of where it originated as far as email goes. I think that's really exciting, because a lot of the communication that you have with your coworkers, with your staff, is unspoken, meaning it's the data you put into the software, it's the update you make to the spreadsheet, it's whatever it might be. That is a form of communication. And this is allowing it all to be in one place for really quick access to records and so forth. And I love just how sleek it is, right? Meaning there's not a whole lot you have to do. You just keep doing what you've already been doing, right? Emailing the way you've been emailing, and the data just flows and gets where it needs to be.
That's the beauty of it, is what we like to tell people is that there is zero training for the users. It all works behind the scenes. So once Savant is set up for your organization, the organization can determine which email boxes they would like Savant to look at. And from that point forward, those emails going in and out of those email boxes are being recorded when appropriate in the appropriate place in Rent Manager. So there aren't too many softwares out there where you can say there's zero training for this software. I'm not sure. I can't think of any right now except for Savant. But it's so simple that we tell people when they sign up that once you implement this, you don't even have to tell your staff that it exists. And we're not saying that because we're trying to, you're trying to hide something or we're trying to hide something. We're trying to get the point across that that's how easy it is. There's no user interface. The user will send their email and receive email using whatever they have been doing for the last 25 years. If they use Gmail, if they use Outlook, whatever they use, they just do their work the way that they've always done it. There's nothing new to learn, and everything's happening behind the scenes. So people have loved it for that reason too, the simplicity of it.
Yeah, and that's important. You talk about the training aspect. Most software programs, you need training, you need ongoing training. There's all of these elements that can be a little bit of a pain point or a big pain point, depending on the type of software, for companies to implement, right? They're trying to increase efficiency and they know they need to use new technology. But one of the big barriers is the fact that they don't want to go through and train their entire staff on it, because that's more time out of their day trying to get everything they've done that they need done. So this is what's so exciting about this product, is they really can just turn it on and just let it run.
Yeah, we like that. We like that because one of the issues with implementing any new software is, of course, finding the time to do it, right? Because we know it's not just, I don't just buy the software. I also have to figure out how to use it. I have to get people to buy in and whatnot. That is one of the best things about this, is that we can get it set up. If a customer says, yep, I'd like to try that, we can have you set up literally in minutes if you really wanted to. And after that, once it's set up, it's going. So when we're on a call onboarding a customer, before we get off, we take a couple minutes, get things set up. We say, when we look, we can kind of look at the server level and say, oh yeah, we're popping emails in your system already. Oh, we just popped one in as a history note. We just did that. So it starts happening right away. So you're up and running right away, immediately. I love that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And as I think about this entire topic and how important communication is, the reality is there is a matter of managing communication that a lot of people, I think, overlook. Yes, it's about the content, how you position things. That's really important, but how you manage the communication is really important, from how you keep records of it, how you share that information, how you give other people access to it, how you automate it. All of those things really do matter, especially when you're using technology, because if you're not managing it well, you're not really utilizing the tools to the level that you could be. And really, your products, your services really kind of start filling in a lot of these gaps for people.
Yeah, that's really what we're trying to do. Again, I've said it a couple times already. I'll say it again. But if a computer can do it, let a computer do it. So we want to do things. We want to run as efficiently as possible, and that is certainly a way to do that. We like to run lean. We like to do it with as few human resources as we possibly can. The nice thing about a computer, even though it's not perfect, is that it doesn't get sick. It doesn't complain usually. It doesn't quit on you, right? It's not asking for raises all the time, things like that. So we like that, and we want to automate as much as we can. And if we can if we can remove hours or give a company or a person at that company hours back in the day, it allows them to do more with less. That's really kind of what it comes down to. Can we do more with less? So can I grow my company with the same amount of staff? Or can I, grow my company more than I could have just by adding less staff than I would have had to? I mean, that's really at the bottom, at the end of the day. That's it. Can I do that? Now, it's great to say that and to talk about it, but can I actually do it? Are there, that's when I give that example of how when I first built MailFuze, to say that what used to take us a full day, so I'll use 8 hours, now takes seconds. That's real, right? That's real. And when we talk about Savant and we talk about all that it can do and not having to worry about copying and pasting email content into the history notes, that becomes a real training issue for companies as well, because that's a lot of what happens now, right? They say, oh, you got an important email from the tenant. Well, make sure that you copy and paste that or make a PDF out of it and make sure you get that in the history notes, right? Well, we all know property management can get really hectic sometimes. So to rely on the person to even be able to do it, they might have all the intentions of doing it, but they're just really busy. And there's a lot of calls coming in, and it's the first of the month, and people, we're looking for rent payments and things like that. It can just slip through the cracks. So this is a perfect example where technology fills a gap and allows you to do something that just was not possible before. And to that end, from a training perspective, they might say, the company's policy might be, we'll make sure you get important emails into the history notes. Okay, what does important mean, right? We have to define that. And so this is just a perfect, Savant has been, I think that's why it's been so successful so quickly, is that this is exactly what people have been looking for. They want Rent Manager to be their single source of truth. And regardless of what software they're using, they want that software to be their single source of truth, right? Mm-hmm. And so we want to get all that communication in there, because I don't want to have to go somewhere else to dig up some information. Oh, we've got an issue with this particular resident. Everybody, give me any communication you ever had with that resident. Make sure you send that to me, and I'll assemble it. Well, no, this way it's already in there. And so we are trying to help companies become more efficient. We want companies to be able to do more with what they already have. And like you talked about earlier, then we can also, the people that you do have, we can elevate them, and they can do more than what they were doing before, because now they're not doing some of these mundane, tedious tasks.
That's so true. And it's really, one of the oldest principles in business, right, is doing more with less. That's how most companies grow. That's how they scale. That's how they compete, right? That's how they keep prices down. All of those things are true. And with more and more technology, I think every business is being challenged right now to do more with less. And we talk about automation and AI and all of these pieces. That's not going away. That's not going to change. In fact, it may be more important now than ever to find a way to make sure your company is strong, secure, stable going forward, is to do more with less.
I think I don't think it's important. I think it's critical, right? Because companies are doing it. Companies are adopting it. But here's a key. You can throw all the technology at a problem that you want to. But if you're not using it properly, you don't understand how to use it properly, it's not going to work. So we're talking about technology here, and I love technology, and it's helped us tremendously with what we do, and it's helped a lot of people tremendously. But one thing I would want everybody to understand, I think everybody does at some level, just make sure that you are, don't just think that throwing a technology at a solution all by itself necessarily solves the problem. They're usually, and when we talk about our two products, it's not so much Savant, because that really does work behind the scenes, but even with MailFuze, make sure that you're using that appropriately. So there's generally got to be some process around that technology to make sure that you're getting it. It goes back to what we talked about initially with say Rent Manager users, right? They may be using 50% of all the capabilities. And then if they're not using all the capabilities, they might get frustrated and say, oh, I wish I could do this, or whatever it might be. And it's just that they don't know, or they might have implemented something incorrectly off the bat. And so the process, sitting down, and that's where the human being is never going to go away, right? It's never going to go away. The process has to be there. You have to kind of think through, how am I going to use this? And I don't want everybody to think that we're just, hey, let's just buy more technology. Technology is awesome, and you have to do it. Have to do it. Because if you don't, you're going to get left behind, no question. But when you do it, let's make sure you do it the right way.
That's perfect. Well, as we kind of turn the corner towards the end of the episode here, Joe, share some more information about how people can reach out to you and your team to learn more about MailFuze, Savant, and learn how to use technology the right way. And I think that's such a great way to say it. We all get excited. We want to buy the latest tech, but we don't always use it the right way, implement it the right way. What's the best way they can reach out and learn more?
Yeah, so you can go out to our website, which is www.efformance.com, EFF, 2 Fs. You can certainly email us, but our email addresses will be out there. You can call us, 262-216-6300, and we're happy to talk to anybody. We love to talk about process, but we love to talk about technology too.
Yeah, it's true. You know a lot about process. You've helped a lot of people with their operations and processes as well. So that's terrific. We'll make sure to drop a lot of links and so forth into our show notes as well. Make it really easy for people to find you and your team. Always love learning more about what you're up to and all the new tools and technology that you're building for our mutual customers. It's always a lot of fun. So, Joe, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been great. Well, thanks again for joining me, and thank you to our audience for listening in to another great episode. And until next time, keep going beyond rent.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond Rent. If you enjoyed this podcast, spread the word on social media and with your peers in the industry. To be notified when more episodes are released, subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Beyond Rent is brought to you by Rent Manager Property Management Software. Learn more about Rent Manager's industry-leading software solutions at rentmanager.com. Until next time, keep going beyond rent.